Hi, my name is Nalin Ratnayake. I am a physics teaching resident wrapping up my residency year in Boston Teacher Residency's 10th cohort. I grew up in Boise, Idaho, and for some time I was a research engineer in California. For 6 years, I was an aerospace research engineer for NASA at Edwards Air Force Base, NASA Dryden Flight Research Center. I studied propulsion systems, aerodynamics, re-entry systems, jet engines, rocket engines, stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. Actually, it was kind of my dream job. I wanted to work for NASA when I was a kid. Finally got to live the dream, and it was great. But then I started wanting to pay that forward a little bit. I'm the child of immigrants myself, so education opened a lot of doors for me in this country, and yeah, definitely wanted to pay that forward. I looked into several teaching entry programs, and Boston Teacher Residency was definitely the most rigorous. I went through the application process, and when I got to selection day, it was pretty clear that this was a program that I wanted to be in. People seemed really committed to the mission, and that's something that I really appreciated. Having worked for NASA before, I have a very mission-driven mindset. It's just kind of who I was as an engineer. You have a set of objectives to complete in a certain amount of time, and we're all there as a team to go towards that mission, and BTR definitely seems to have that personality as well. When I started thinking about teaching, I really kind of thought back about family. Teaching's kind of the family business. If you look back a couple generations, both grandparents on both sides of my family were teachers or headmasters in Sri Lanka. So there's that kind of legacy component. One of my grandfathers, my mother's father, to whom I was very close, passed away about 3 years ago, and he was an amazing guy, very literature, theatrical type person, and he had this bookshelf, just this almost floor-to-ceiling shelf of mementos from teaching, and they were all just over years, decades of teaching and the appreciation that his students had shown. And I remember one of the last conversations I'd had with him before he passed away was, if you really want to make a difference in the world, if you want to get out there and really change things and leave something behind, go be a teacher. And that really resonated with me. So that was a big part of the decision. Not the only part, but a big part. As a researcher, I was used to having some independence and freedom to think creatively, to think outside the box, come up with creative solutions to problems. That's what engineers do, right? And I think there's this stereotype of teaching as kind of being formulaic, like I'll fill in these bubble sheets and do these multiple choice tests and whatever. But that's really not what teaching is. Teaching is very dynamic, especially the way that BTR trains you to do teaching. It's inquiry based. In science, that means we're doing hands-on things. We're letting students discover science on their own terms and having it inform their own view of the world, making models of the world, and then continuously revising their models and figuring out how that fits into their own narrative of the world, which I think is a really beautiful thing. It's much, much harder to teach that way, I think. But the upside of that is that to the educator, you definitely have a lot. There's so many ways it can go. You have to be creative. You have to be on your toes. You have to be on your toes for 6 hours at a stretch sometimes. But you got to be on your toes. You got to be creative. You got to be able to think outside of the box and come up with solutions. Sometimes in a very short amount of time. One of my favorite things about this year has been our waves unit on waves, mechanical waves, light waves, sound waves, and my co-resident and I designed a project for them, an inquiry-based project on earthquakes and tsunamis. And so they're learning about how waves travel through the earth, convey energy from one point to another, using earthquake P waves, earthquake S waves, surface waves, and tsunami waves itself. So it's a way of looking at something that actually happened in the world, the 2004 Sumatra disaster, the earthquake and the tsunami, and translating that into how is physics used to help protect people, to understand the world we live in, and to make life better, which is really what it's all about, and that requires a lot of effort and a lot of thinking. It's fun. I've certainly had some wonderful differences of opinion with people in this cohort, because we're very passionate people, very strong-minded people, high-achieving people. A lot of times that leads to friction, so that is what it is. But I love being able to have that kind of open, honest debate about what teaching is and what good teaching is and how we can best serve our students. What I love is that everyone in this cohort has that level of commitment and that passion, and we can always come back to that common point. We want what's best for our students, and we want to nurture and develop them as independent thinkers, as integral parts of our shared democracy. And I think that's a pretty important thing. Democracy and education are really, you can't have one really without the other in an authentic way. And having authentic people, like the friends I've made in this cohort, I don't know, I love them. It's good. And it's good to know they have my back, This is hard stuff, really hard stuff. And, there's a lot of times where you think that, at least I thought that I'm really not cut out for this. This is, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And the people in the cohort, they got your back. They'll lift you up when you're down. If they're also down, you can commiserate together. And just the flow of ideas and passion really kind of reinforces itself.